Aatu Räty is prepping for his biggest season yet with the Abbotsford Canucks in the hopes of making a big enough splash towards making the Vancouver roster. And these quotes from Räty himself are sure to excite any Canucks fans as we head into next season. We'll be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest, but first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all updates surrounding the Canucks this offseason. With that, let's hop into the first and only topic of today, which is Aatu Räty's biggest season yet to come. And we see here an article from Chris Faber with the Canucks Insider that Aatu Räty is preparing for the biggest season of his young career. We'll be covering the excerpts from that in a moment, but if you don't know who Aatu Räty is, we haven't covered him too much on the channel, but he is a 21-year-old center from Finland. He's a left-hander. He's 6'2", 187 pounds, was drafted number 52 overall by the New York Islanders in the second round in 2021. Then Vancouver signed him as well, and he is under contract with the Canucks from 2024-2025 with an $836,000 cap hit. We're not worried about that right now, but what we're focused on right now is the present. When you look at his stats, he did have a decent time in Abbotsford until this season, where he did continue to grow after leaving Bridgeport and the New York Islanders system, where Vancouver was able to make him grow and make him turn into the stud that he turned into last season with the Abbotsford Canucks. 18 goals, 34 assists, 52 points over 72 games. That was good enough to tie third for points on the Abbotsford Canucks and 6th in the AHL for players who are 21 years or younger. That is fantastic to see from this prospect, having come over from a New York system where he didn't have a big splash really. He had 15 points in that one season over 27 games, but other than that, he didn't really do too much, and Abbotsford has continued to make him grow. And with the acquisition of Manny Malhotra, I don't doubt that this is going to be something where he's going to develop even further and be one of those top goal scorers for Abbotsford as well. Again, maybe the leading scorer, who knows? I think the floor is very low for him, and I think the ceiling is very high, where he could go, the sky's the limit, where he has nothing but growth to have with this system as well with the Sedins. We're going to get to that in a second, but as well as his off-season training and discipline. You see here in a quote about his discipline, it's all about creating a program and then trusting it. You have to grind through it. You can't let other things like people asking you to change your plans or go somewhere. You have to set everything up around your workouts, because going away from the program means you wouldn't recover the way you should. And he went further on his training, saying you just have to trust the process and kind of have nothing to do the whole summer. For me, it's a lot about speed, strength in my lower body on top of the strength stuff. There's a lot of work on the ice doing skating work, but I can't do squats 7 days a week. It's a lot of work to bring me in the gym into the ice, and I like it. I'm getting a really good feeling about my technique this summer. I feel like I'm really improving, and that is really awesome to see, where he is just committed to the grind. He's committed to working hard, to developing his game further in a way that we haven't seen many other players speak out about recently, as far as we've seen in the quotes. But I think this coming out for Räty is very reassuring for fans to know that he is determined to grow on that 52-point season and maybe go up to 60 points, up to 70 points. Who knows? Maybe he does hit those points. I think with Manny Malhotra and the Sedins in this system, he is going to excel. And speaking of the Sedins, he did have some nice things to say, where everyone knows there's no magic formula, but how they coach is a lot like how they played. They work hard, that they keep it simple. And you see it, if you see their drills, they are simple. There is nothing fancy about them, but they are effective. And when you have that coming from guys who are the franchise leading scorers of this team, they are also Hall of Famers. They've won everything they can together except for a Stanley Cup. But when you hear that coming out of a prospect where they keep it simple, and if that worked for them, it could work for him. And why wouldn't it as well? When you see the production he's had and how much he's grown significantly in a short amount of time within this Abbotsford system, I think it shows that he's going to go very far with this team and maybe make a splash on this Vancouver Canucks roster by the end of the season. He was someone that I didn't really have on my radar of doing that, but after reading this article and these quotes, I am fired up about him going into next season and potentially making that surprise visit to Vancouver in a few games, who knows, and potentially later on in the postseason if he makes a big enough splash. And he did have another quote to say about North American hockey, where you have to adapt and play the way that the hockey is played here. The coaches know what they're doing, and they've been in North America for a lot longer than I have. I know that I need to trust in that and continue playing that way. There are obviously things in my game that got me here, so not like I'm trying to completely change the way I play, but I trust in the coaches and the game plan. So pairing that with what he said about the Sedins is very reassuring as well, where he knows he has to keep it simple, and he knows that he doesn't have to do anything completely different from what he did to get him here. He's here for a reason. He got those 52 points for a reason. He's a stud for a reason. So when he has that reassurance going behind him and the confidence in the coaches that he can excel while also refining parts of his game that he knows he needs to refine while not changing who he is as a player entirely. That's very reassuring. And speaking of who he is as a player entirely, you see here where he values performance over points. I feel like some of my better periods were when I had no points, but instead you control possession and control the wall. That's just hockey. You never want to be too high or too low on points. You need to look deeper than just points and look at your overall performance. That is also crazy to see where this is a team that has a lot of point scorers, as I'm talking about Vancouver in this sense. So if he's a guy who can come on with a lot of production in Abbotsford and make that jump to Vancouver where he has the potential to put up a lot of points in production, but he's okay being that guy who isn't taking the spotlight, who's just setting guys up and controlling the game, that's even better where you have a two-way player like that who can score but also control and dictate the game from a defensive standpoint and a slight offensive standpoint. That is amazing to see where he has that ability. He has that ability to also grow with it. I think it's going to be great where he can make that jump from Manny Malhotra to Rick Tocchet, where they're both players coaches. They've had experience in the league, so they know what they're talking about as far as refining his game. And I think that's going to go a long way towards doing it. And one of the things that is going towards a long way of refining his game is the fact that one of the new things Aatu had to adapt to this past year was taking on the challenge of being able to play all three forward positions. Aatu has been a pure center all of his life, but this past season he was used on both wings and found that it gave him more of an opportunity for the different strengths of his game to shine. So pairing that with all the training he's doing, with the discipline that he has, and with what he's able to do at multiple positions, getting that experience at multiple positions where he could be a utility belt player where he's not just a center, he's a winger as well and can create opportunities but also refine pieces of his game through those other positions. That can make him a multi-threat player and someone very, very dangerous for the Vancouver Canucks going forward if they decide to sign him after next season. It'll be interesting to see what he does with Abbotsford next season and what he did last season with Abbotsford as a center as well. With his faceoff stats, he primarily plays center and is proud of his 55% faceoff percentage last season in the AHL. The 21-year-old has some tricks in the faceoff dot that have progressed through his 2 seasons in North America, including taking faceoffs right-handed to use the sweeping actions of his left-hand curved stick. And there is a few videos on here on YouTube if you want to go look them up. They're very cool to see where he does just flip it like that and players don't even know what to do with it. The puck's dropped and the puck's gone. He just takes it and runs. And it's awesome to see how he can be that utility belt player, like I said, and also just be a Swiss Army knife where you have him as multiple threats at different positions, but also in the faceoff circle, he's very compelled to just flip the script on you and just take the puck away from you and make you miss and make you look like a fool in the faceoff circle. So it'll be interesting to see if he can apply that to the NHL, where he's doing that to some of the pros who are some of the best in the faceoff circle, being on a team that has great centers like JT Miller, where they can be just a dual threat on a few different lines in the future. That would be cool to see. Let us know what you guys think. And speaking of him making the team, do you guys think he'll make the team? And when he was speaking on making the team, he had this to say, where you obviously want to make the team out of camp, but if you play well, people are going to notice. I think it's simply about playing the game the right way and just doing everything I can while not thinking about the result or if I'm going to make the team or not. That is unnecessary pressure. They are going to make the best team possible, and obviously I want to be part of it, but it's not all about me. We want to win. I'm just going to give it my all and make it not be up to me. Right now, I'm just focused on giving 100%, doing all the preparation in the summer. And pairing that with everything we've heard, this is just the icing on top of the cake, where he is just committed to just being the best player he can be, not worried about the outside noise. He's just worried about keeping his head down, having that chip on his shoulder where if people want to count him out, fine. He'll just keep progressing and just focusing on him putting up points in production. Another player who is like that, JT Miller. He is the embodiment of that, where he just keeps his head down, gets his goals scored, gets his assists, and before you know it, he has 100 points. I'm not saying Aatu is capable of 100 points yet, but I think he is in a position where he could be one of those players who, if you're not paying attention, he could sneak up on you and could just really make you look like a fool and just prove you wrong and surprise a lot of people. So interested to see what he can do with this team. Let us know what you guys think he's going to do with Abbotsford next year. Do you think he's going to exceed 60 points or reach up to 70? Would love to hear what you guys have to say. And speaking of what you guys have to say, let's get into everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. And we see here in a comment from Dwayne Croy, where watching Hughes and Hronek get ran over by bigger forwards on other teams in the playoffs shows that something has to change. And that's referencing our last video where we talked about David Desharnais moving up to that top line with Quinn Hughes. After some thought yesterday, I was thinking that maybe it is not a bad idea to have that go on a few different games to see how it goes and to see if it's something that you could throw as a monkey wrench into these teams into the postseason. So yes, it would be interesting to see. The only thing I worry about is Quinn Hughes' production, if that would take a dip with David Desharnais. But again, David Desharnais is that bigger guy, so it would be nice to have him on that line to make it more balanced. So that was interesting. Another thing from last video that I do want to address, there was a few comments saying it, was the DeBrusk thing where I said 100 points. I did realize what I said when I said it, and I tried to quickly correct it to saying that it was around 60 points or 70, maybe up to 80. But again, 80 would be a stretch for him. I don't doubt that in time, he is signed for a long time, that maybe he can develop into someone who can get to that 100 points. I know he's in his prime right now, but we've seen JT Miller break the age curve and a lot of Vancouver Canucks players. So if DeBrusk is one of those players who can do that and reach those all-time highs for his career, great. But I think he is in a position where he's going from someone who is in a bottom line guy in Boston to a guy who's going to be on the top line in Vancouver. So naturally his points are going to go up and continue to grow. It's just a matter of how far they will grow. I'm not saying he'll get to 100 points. I know that was a mistake, but I do think he is capable of 70, potentially 80 points in the future. Would be interesting to see what he does. I just can't wait for this season. I just wish he would be here already. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.